Welcome to the Delta Source Podcast, your number one source for discount ion cannons. Today
Only lightly used.
only lightly used. Today we are discussing the Clone Wars Episode 2, Rising Malevolence, where we're going to break down the episode leading quote and see how it relates to the episode plot itself.
That's right.
So our quote this time is that belief is not a matter of choice, but of conviction. Ooh, that's deep.
Interesting. A little bit more cerebral than last time for sure.
Yeah.
The thinker. It's the thinker, alright.
I'll read our official episode description here. Creating panic throughout the galaxy, a devastating separatist mystery weapon terrorizes the clone Starfleet. Anakin and Ahsoka race to save Jedi Master Plo Koon and his clone troopers in time. Jedi Master Plo Koon and his squad barely survive an attack from a mysterious separatist warship called the Malevolence. Can they stay alive long enough for Anakin and Ahsoka to find them?
Well, Plo Koon probably can anyway. But
Plo Koon probably
I mean,
can.
he does show up in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I don't know about those other guys, though. They're probably dead.
So, spoiler warning for the episode Rising Malevolence. Let's get into it.
Plo Koon does not die. There's your spoiler. No, but yeah, Rising Malevolence. An interesting episode and a start to one of the more beloved arcs in the series, to be honest. Which
You think so?
I, from what I've heard on the internet, people generally say, "Oh, season 1 is kind of skippable, except for the Malevolence arc is worth a watch, and Rookies is a pretty good episode."
Okay.
That's generally what I hear, anyway.
I've not been as tapped into popular opinion on parts of Clone Wars, but that's cool.
Yeah, I thought so.
I remember when I saw this one as a kid, this was like they said there's going to be a new Star Wars cartoon, and I tuned in and saw one of the Malevolence episodes, and I was not real impressed back then, but I was also really distracted with ADHD, so I didn't end up watching much Clone Wars after seeing this bit of Malevolence. I don't know which of the 3 episodes it was.
Yeah, I didn't really watch it much as it was coming out either, to be honest. I just thought it was kind of, I don't know. When you're 15 years old, things are generally lame. Just like things in general around you are lame, and so this was another lame thing. So it was more fun to make fun of than it was to actually watch.
Right.
And it wasn't until like college when I was like, okay,
Now I get it.
yeah, like maybe this series is actually pretty good, you know?
Yeah. So, about belief. It's not a matter of choice, but of conviction. So, I tried to find where characters believing came into play, and the 2 main ones I identified is Ahsoka believes that Plo Koon survived, and Plo believes that someone will find him and the clones if they all work together.
Oh, that's true. They do both hold, because the clones are kind of thinking about maybe giving up hope, and Plo Koon's like, "No, you gotta believe." Not directly a quote there, but that's just what it says anyway. Plo Koon is not as much of a.
Plo Koon's like, "Yeah, man, you got to believe."
I like the vibe, man. And Plo Koon's, smoking that Coruscant spice over there.
So, with Ahsoka, she believes 100% that Plo Koon survived, even though they have no indication that there's any survivors from having these 3 Venator-class ships destroyed. Because the episode opens with all 3 of them getting ion blasted by the Malevolence and then blown apart. And so there's what do you call them? Escape pods floating around through this debris field, and they send out this can crusher full of droid operatives to pick off the survivors, which is pretty gnarly for episode 2 of a kid show.
Yeah, it's very violent. Like, they're basically going out and murdering a bunch of people who can't hurt them.
And we see several totally dead troopers. I think we even see one set of them get blasted out into vacuum without wearing a suit.
It is, it's kind of hardcore, actually. I mean, this show really did get away with a lot of violence
Yeah.
for like a primetime TV slot that was watched by very many 7-year-olds. There was
Yes.
an awful lot of people getting killed in this show, and I think this was the first episode that really kicked that trend off. Granted, also the second episode of the whole series, so they start as they mean to go on, you know.
Mhm.
Uh,
So,
and those four Venator class ships,
yes.
they really do get the Worf effect, to borrow a Star Trek term, because it's a cool ship design, but like all you ever do is see them getting blown up,
Yeah.
knocked out, or killed, or some other bad thing happening to them. And this episode is no. We also see the first on-screen appearance of the Twilight, which is kind of cool. Well, obviously it was in the movie, but the first show appearance
Hmm.
of the Twilight, which is pretty cool. It's a neat little ship design. I kind of
Is
like
that
it.
their boxy ship that they take
Yeah,
everywhere?
it's a little freighter. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, despite all the evidence pointing that Plo Koon is probably dead, Ahsoka believes it so strongly that it leads her to behave impetuously throughout the whole episode in front
Yes,
of
very.
the Jedi Masters on the Council, in front of her master Anakin, and so throughout the episode, Anakin kind of tries to teach her, like, it's okay to disagree with what they tell you. You just have to kind of, play it cool while you're on the
Yeah.
phone, and then go out and do what you were gonna do anyway, and say sorry later.
Which is definitely his philosophy as a Jedi, and has been ever since he started being
Yeah.
a Jedi, really. So, I don't know what they thought giving him a Padawan was going to do, but,
Yeah, I
well,
don't know.
eh.
So, even with Anakin, supporting her and wanting to look for Plo Koon because of her belief and her conviction, it leads her to, she just continues to persist that Plo has to be out there and they can rescue him, even when Anakin says it's time for them to give up
Yeah,
and
he's
move on to
perfectly
something
spaced
else.
too, that's true.
And then at the very, very last minute, they actually get a signal from Plo and they go out there and rescue him and the clones.
Yeah, and it does have a happy ending. Well, and kind of a cliffhanger in it too, because this is the start of the first ever multi-episode arc in this series, which
Ooh.
is, kind of cool. So yeah, I guess it does kind of tie in there, doesn't it? You got that belief aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Belief is not a matter of choice, but conviction. Well, fair enough. All right, you've made your case, sir. I'm inclined to agree. I think that it does. I think it does relate.
So then, on the Plo Koon aspect, Plo believes that they will escape, they will survive if they work together. So he ends up, because of he's so convinced of this, that he leads them to take really desperate measures where, while they're about to be crushed by the Can Crusher, he has two of the troopers get on their helmets and they hop outside of the pod, which I'm a little confused how they did that
There's
without
probably an
evacuating
airlock.
all the air for the guy without a helmet. But
They probably should have put his on too, just in case, to be
Yeah.
honest. But whatever.
he said he could survive the
Fine.
pressure for a few minutes, which is pretty hardcore.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Gotta say.
And then they do a cool little battle operation to destroy the Can Crusher before they get picked up by Ahsoka and Anakin. And within the party of clones here, one of them shows the opposite of belief. He is in disbelief the whole time that they will be rescued.
He's being very, very negative about the whole thing, really.
And he specifically voices that his reason is because, we're just clones. We're meant to be expendable. So he, his conviction, he's convinced that he's not worth that much. But then Plo counters that by sort of mirroring Yoda in the first episode, where he mentioned, he says, you're not expendable, you're all unique and special.
They're all individuals, yeah.
Yeah.
Not to me. Yep. Good old Plo Koon. And that's another fine example of, I guess, one of the stronger overarching themes of the whole show, really, which is that, the clones were built to be weapons and raised to be weapons and treated as numbers, but then, like, as soon as you put them under the command of an organization that's devoted, at least, on paper, to treating all life as sacred and all linked, they don't treat them like that. That's not how the Jedi would ever have behaved in that situation. I'm wondering if Sidious maybe did that kind of to try and mess with them a little bit, or if he was trying to, what sort of, because he picked clones. I mean, he could have picked
Yeah.
droids, something else. Why did he pick clones specifically? Maybe this
Right.
is related to that. Not to get too.
Yeah,
Anyway.
there's a whole discussion to be had there
Yeah,
about
that's a
what would
discussion
have
for having
happened
a longer
to the
episode on
clones
another
if the Jedi weren't working with them. Um, so, do you have any more points that you want to touch on about this episode?
Further thoughts, final thoughts. Yes, there's one thing which is a little correction to a fact that someone told me years ago, which was, I think it was a mutual friend of ours actually, said something to the effect of, they say that, they've never seen an ion cannon used before, but like ion cannons aren't a new weapon. Ion cannons have been around for hundreds of years. Like this is clearly a continuity error. They're playing fast and loose with it. Having
Okay.
rewatched the episode fairly recently, what they actually say was an ion cannon of this size, I
Ah,
believe. So
yeah.
it's not an issue of, they're not saying ion cannons don't exist. They're saying, and that's probably true. I mean, that's a big ion cannon.
Yeah.
You gotta admit, that's pretty impressive. So yeah, that's what I'll have to, just a small correction for something that I believe for 15 years because I haven't rewatched this episode.
Okay.
Since then, and that might have actually even been in the episode after this one. I'm not sure exactly when that quote was, but it's sometime in this story arc. So I figured I'd
Okay.
mention it now. That's all.
My last point that I want to mention is just a little fun fact Easter egg they put in there. Because Malevolence is, a classic super weapon, whenever they fire the Malevolence cannon in this episode for the first time, they replicate the technician standing in the Death Star beam,
shot. Yeah.
with a couple of droids standing there and wincing away from the beam as it goes by them.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Not bad, guys. Not bad.
Well, this has
There you
been
go.
Delta Source. That's all we got for you this time. We're your number one source for. Tell me, what are we the number one source for this time?
What are we? It was secondhand ion cannons, I believe.
Oh yeah, yeah. So come on down. We got the bargain bin. Reach in there, pull out a few. It'll only
pretty
cost you
big,
5
but-
credits.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we got so many at this point. Got them coming out of my ears. Anyway, we'll see you folks later, where we talk about episode 3 of Clone Wars, I suppose.
That would make sense sequentially.
Or we could just talk about some other random thing, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
May the Force be with you all.